You're watching Saurabh Sagar Show. These are some of the stats related to talent hunt. 63% of businesses struggles to find skilled professionals for data-related roles, especially in advanced analytics and machine learning.
In 2023-2024, the number of data engineering job postings double the ones in the previous year, outspacing the data scientist roles.
More than 45% of data professionals hired in 2023 was self-taught or came from boot camps rather than traditional degrees.
Remote work adoption has led companies to get talent from international pools, increasing competition in international markets for the top talents.
Data professionals earn an average of 20 to 40% more than the equivalent IT roles, with median salaries exceeding $120K for senior positions in the US.
Employees value communication, storytelling, and problem solving as much as technical proficiencies in data roles. Those were the stats for the talent hunt. Please join us for conversations on the street. Welcome to the Conversations on the Street, and today's topic is talent hunt. Saurabh, you have researched some myths around talent hunt, and the first myth that you have put on your list is a candidate's resume is the best indicator of their abilities.
Well, Sagar, while resume offer a snapshot of experience, they often overlook soft skills, adaptability, and cultural fit. Increasingly, companies rely on skill-based assessments and behavioral interviews to evaluate candidates more holistically.
Moving on to the second myth, only candidates with advanced degrees are qualified. And that means I may not be qualified because I don't have an advanced degree.
Well, with the rise of skill-based hiring, Sagar, companies focus on capabilities rather than formal degrees. Many tech roles prioritize certifications, boot camps, and demonstrated skills over traditional education.
The third myth that you have on your list, Saurabh, is that the tech pool is shrinking.
Well, Sagar, while competition for skilled tech workers is intense, educational initiatives and reskilling programs are helping to grow the talent pool globally.
The next myth is more job openings means better hiring.
Well, an increase in job openings often leads to higher competition for top candidates, making effective recruitment strategies more critical than ever.
And the last myth that you have on your list, Saurabh, is that higher salaries are enough to attract top talent.
This is an interesting one, Sagar. While compensation is essential, candidates increasingly prioritize work-life balance, flexible working conditions, and strong company values like diversity and sustainability. Sagar, let's get our guest for today's episode, who brings tremendous amount of experience on the talent hunt.
Today we have a special guest. She describes herself as a natural problem solver with strong customer and strategic focus. She is effective in facilitating change across organizations. She actively writes articles on LinkedIn and Medium on interview guides, job satisfaction, and recruitment. She has a decade of experience across business consultant, HR manager, recruitment consultant, HR business partner, and now she's a talent acquisition manager at Slalom. We are very lucky to have Neha Sharma on our show. Welcome to our show, Neha.
Thanks, Sagar. That was really great. Thanks for having me, Saurabh. What a start. Thank you. You did study my profile quite well.
I was going through your LinkedIn and I was reading some of your posts. And one of the posts that really attracted me was your article on job satisfaction, where you compared an egg to a job satisfaction. Tell us more about that.
Wow. That was what? 5-6 years ago? My God. I really enjoy this space because I really feel that this profession allows me to be working at the intersection of people and purpose. It's a role where you can get a lot of sense of fulfillment because you're actually helping candidates, individuals to land a role, land a dream job, which revolves around understanding their stimulus, their motivators, their push and pull factors. So basically looking at them as a person before you look at them as a professional, and understanding what is that they've been trying to achieve to the next career change? And how would that be rewarding for them? And hence, I think one of the catchy phrases for which I got a lot of people reaching out to me and really praising me for that article, it should not be on a resume just because you've done it. It should be on a resume if you want to be doing so. Whilst you're on this journey of finding a role for yourself, you need to be very clear with what is that you are putting at the forefront of your job strategy. What are those anchor points for you whilst you're looking for a role? And you need to really have that thought clarity in your head. Only then you can find something that keeps you positively challenged. And you just want to wake up in the morning and you really want to do that role.
Today, when I'm putting my resume, I put the Saurabh Sagar Show as part of my resume. So that's because I
There you
enjoy
go.
doing that.
Yeah,
So see, and that's great. So thanks for that.
you know it. Yeah, you said it.
If you had to pitch a talent acquisition as a dream career to someone, what would be your 30-second elevator pitch?
30 seconds. What I love about talent acquisition, it really enables people to shape future not just for the individual, but also for the companies, for the organizations. It's a space where you get to work at the intersection of people and purpose. And that's what I love the most about it. And you're not just merely filling positions. You're actually driving innovation. You're creating teams. You are helping business grow and scale. So it is quite a high impact role, which can directly impact companies with their success and their journey. It's a role where strategy meets storytelling. So if you are a natural problem solver, if you love connecting with people, and if you really love doing something meaningful, then it is the role for you.
When I joined my current organization, Neha was the talent recruiter which recruited me. And I must share, in my 17-year experience, this experience was special because she explored what I needed. Many times when you were looking for a job as a candidate in the market, you're mostly filling a job description. So as a recruiter, someone is trying to fill the role, right? But in my case, I was seeing not only that, they was trying to explore what the candidate is looking through. So it's more exploring what I wanted, and then giving feedback after every interview. So it was a great, I think it was a great experience, one of a special experience in my 17-year career. So
Thanks, Saurabh. That's a lovely mention. I remember that call very vividly. When I called him, I still remember he was actually at some shopping mall with his kids. I did ask him repeatedly, hey, do you want to organize a call? We can do this later. But he was just so excited about the conversation. And also, I think towards the end of your shopping experience, you were more than happy to continue the chat. And I think we did have a good 1 hour long conversation. And look, here you are today, still with the same company. Yeah. And that's the key, Saurabh. So when you invest in that process to understand the stimulus and the motivators, I think that's where you extend not just attraction and hiring, but sort of extend talent to retention. And that is the future of TA, really. That's where talent acquisition is connected with talent management, and that should be the forward-looking approach for every company.
So is talent acquisition different to recruitment consultant?
That is a great question that will come handy for young professionals who are looking at considering this as their career option. It is essentially the same, Sagar. So talent acquisition, hiring, staffing, recruitment, these are interchangeable nomenclatures, terminologies in the talent market, in the industry. However, the moment you would hear someone representing them as a talent advisor, talent consultant, a talent partner, it is safe to assume that that person is playing more comprehensive role where there's a lot of effort, KPIs, and the success is measured against or across how they are influencing decision-making more closely by using TA analytics, so to speak.
What is day in a life for you? How do you go with your job? That's one question. And then the second one, which I'm very interested in, is when you are looking at to fill a position, what is your filtration criteria? Because you would be getting thousands of resumes. How do you filter those, and how do you decide which one of those should be the candidates going forward in an interview round?
Look, I am going to attempt and answer this from my perspective. And then I'll also give a more generic answer. So the first answer is coming from a place where I'm very fortunate to be working with this company where TA is considered as a strategic partner. So someone who's playing that role, the role may look very different to someone than who's playing a recruiter or recruitment consultant role in a more transactional driven environment, if that makes sense. Typically speaking, in a broader, overarching view, as a recruiter, you would basically be working very closely with business, where you will be spending some time with your key stakeholders once you've identified them, and then get a understanding or requirement gathering or position description to understand what are the gaps on the team, what are the skills that you have to look for. And then you start your sourcing by building a high level sourcing strategy, which is guided by talent strategy that your company is already following, which is also guided by what is the recruitment process in place in that company, which is why I said it may look a bit different from one company to the other. And then that would basically unfollow by sourcing candidates. Some companies would be using LinkedIn, some would use portals like Seek, Indeed, and others. We would essentially jump on them. We would find candidates. A good sourcing strategy often would comprise not just one source, which is sourcing, but also, let's say, advertising for that role. So which is why you would see job ads and then candidates would apply. Looking at those job applications, sourcing yourself through LinkedIn. We often say the word headhunting, and that's when we are scouting for talent by using different sourcing. Then obviously, needless to say, you also need to get creative in a time like today, tapping into your network. So one is the network of your company, right? So reference is another, and then also like meetups, the network that you have outside of your company. And that's where my individual branding comes into place. My network comes into place. My goodwill comes into place. And which is why as a TA, we always say we are sellers, we are marketing people, we are like all in one when it comes to the role that we play in a company. Essentially, you would want to fire all cylinders and look at all different channels when you're hiring for a role.
I remember I got one of my previous roles in Melbourne via Meetup. So I was new to Australia. So in those days, finding a role as a migrant here was difficult. I was hopping between contracting roles. I needed a permanent role. So I used to go to meetups, and I found this guy who I kind of impressed him by my knowledge as he recruited me. That's when I realized the importance of networking, especially in a market like Australia.
Which is phenomenal, right, Saurabh? I'm someone who staunchly believes in the power of networking. Australia, Melbourne, it is a very small market. And more you talk about, let's say, tech and then consulting and then data, all the more smaller. It's a very close-knitted community of people. To the point that you just made, if I may share a fun fact, when we are looking at candidates and even business NTAs, recruiters, we often would regard or value a passive candidate. A passive candidate is a candidate that have reached out through, let's say, venues like meetups or our own network. We would often regard them more in a process than someone who's applied. And it's only because it speaks to the fact that they are putting in that extra effort by putting themselves out there, investing in growing their network. If someone is out there joining meetups, whether that's in person or virtually, it also speaks to their motivation to learn, motivation to be across what is out there in terms of modern tech and technology, which often may translate into their ability of picking up new things on the go when they join a company. Take this opportunity to also extend my love and give a shout out to Matt Woodard. Not many people would know. So I'm in this company because of, like you said, because of the power of networking. There's a meetup group in Melbourne, which is Melbourne Talent Meetup. Matt Woodard is one of the co-founders. And actually, I was attending this meetup and I was here when I came to Melbourne as an immigrant. I must have been to a few in person, few virtuals now. And I must have met him maybe 4 or 5 times before he warmed up to the idea of approaching me for this role at Slalom. And he introduced Slalom to me, and this role was not advertised. So had it not been for him approaching me, I wouldn't have had this job. So power of meetups.
What are the things that you're looking at a resume and which resumes stand out compared to others?
I am someone who would look beyond resume. And one of the best practices in TA would also advocate for the same, where having that human-centric approach in recruitment process would teach us not to judge the book by the cover and not, to discount candidates just because you don't see the right experience on the resume that you're looking for. The best guiding principles would be your resume should eloquently articulate your strengths, your experience. You don't want that to be 5 or 6 pages. It needs to be concise and provide the right foundation for a recruiter to be able to decide if or not you are the right candidate based on your skills, strengths, experience.
That's a good point, Neha. I do agree. When you hire a talent, you are hiring a human being and not hiring a resource on paper, filling some requirement. And to know the human being, not resume, like meeting in person and interaction will give you more insights than an on-paper resume. The one area I face, which is challenging for candidates in the market, even I am one of them, is how do we get that first interaction with the talent recruiters? Because the only way to get that first interaction is via resume or your LinkedIn profile, something which gets their attention because you are among a pool of thousands of candidates in the market, right? And that's our first step. That's the first step. And that's where this whole question about, as Sagar asked, how do we make a resume or a profile stand out so that you get that first interaction? And agree, like there are other ways like meetups and networking, but beyond that, is there a way you could put forward a bit of personal side of you in the profile, or is it just technical, something which makes you stand out of other candidates?
I wish there was a perfect answer for this, Saurabh, but there isn't. So if you're looking for a job, you should be really out there in the market, meet as many people as possible. When you're applying for a job, let's say if I'm applying for a company XYZ, right? It's very easy for people to jump on LinkedIn, and then you should invest some time in just do a quick search, TA, recruiter, recruitment, talent acquisition with these keywords. Select that company in the drop down on LinkedIn. And then once you see, a few names would pop up, then you might also want to put a filter of the location. Let's say I'm in Melbourne, so I would put Melbourne as a location. And then it's very easy for you to get a list of people who are working in the TA team, recruitment team. Just connect with them. Do some reach outs, and then also how you approach them makes a lot of difference. So one thing that you need to understand is when companies are hiring for professionals, companies in today's time, more mature companies in today's time, they're not looking to hire people just for skills. They're looking to hire people who fit with who fit into their narrative. And hence, as a candidate, also storytelling is a big part of you selling yourself to a recruiter or a company. But I get your point. It starts from getting that introduction, getting it from the recruiter, getting that first conversation, where you can make that impression and, demonstrate your fit for the role. You should always start with this assumption that you're approaching a recruiter, and that recruiter is in this profession because, hey, we love talking to people. We value these connections. We would love to have a conversation with you. If you know someone at that company, maybe reach out to them and have them refer you. That's another way. And it doesn't have to be just TA, even people from business. Rather, people from business, they are more influential than recruiters.
Great insight, Neha. I think I'm pretty sure people who are watching this podcast and a lot of job seekers in the market would get a lot of valuable insight from this conversation.
I hope so.
We talked about how to find a job or how to get a role, but there's also a more important thing, which is after you got a job, how do you ensure you have a job satisfaction?
An interesting topic, Sagar, and very relevant in today's time, right? So specifically speaking for technology consulting thing, the attrition rate is high more than ever. But I'll have to say this would still sit in the remit of talent management. And the beauty is how that handover happens between talent acquisition, talent management. Closely, they are working and collaborating with each other, sharing these insights and making sure that they have that synergy in making this happen in a seamless manner. So a lot of this would depend on making sure that employees are having a good employee experience, the company's invested in their well-being, demystifying what that even means to them. So running regular surveys and understanding what is the happiness index or whatever you may want to call it in your company. Understanding what is the stimulus of raw resources employees on the ground. And that really comes from an open communication. People will just start looking out for a job because they're not doing okay, which is not a good thing to do. So a lot of this, and then their internal mobility, upskilling your people. So all of this is really a part of talent management. But I would still use this question as a segue to talk about how a good TA would still take ownership of this. Is there anything that you don't like about your role? What is that you're hoping to get to through this job change? What are your career aspirations? Like investing good 5, 10, 15 minutes talking just about that. Is there any push or pull factor? So push and pull factor for people who don't understand what that is. Any candidate typically will look out for a role that would come from either push or pull factor. A push factor is where there are certain pain points in your current role, things that you aren't happy about, things which aren't flying with you. And a pull factor is that, hey, I'm doing okay, but I just heard about this company and oh my God, this thing about this company really has struck a chord with me. I really want to explore this about this company. I've heard great things about this company. So that's a pull factor. And once again, there are no answers. Sometimes it's both, right? So as a TA professional, I think it is my responsibility to make sure that I understand all of this quite well. And then also take that to the business in making sure that once we have understood their pain points, their career aspirations, that is being addressed at every round by every stakeholder. It's very important that both candidate and business understands that interviewing process, a good interviewing process, is not just for the company to evaluate a candidate, but also for a candidate to evaluate us. It needs to be a two-way conversation where a candidate also takes an informed decision as to, is this an answer to the problems or issues that I'm facing with my current company? Often after the very first conversation, sometimes I'm very honest and I tell candidates that, hey, if this is your pain point, to be very honest with you, this is not this company's problem. This is the industry right now. So Slalom might not be able to provide you something which is very different. You will have to work through this, work with this. You'll have to navigate through this. And maybe look at that as a professional development for yourself. And sometimes if that doesn't fly, that's okay. I would rather not bring in that candidate if I know that Slalom isn't the answer for them, rather than, because it will essentially lead to bad employee experience. So, and especially whilst making the offer, once you think that candidate is happy, business is happy, the marriage is about to happen, it's very important that you set the right expectations. Just be honest and transparent with the candidate,
I know that at IBM, there are people who have been working for 25 years and above. So my 16 years are not really big in terms of tenure at IBM.
Neha is more knowledgeable in this area, but 16 years is a lot. If you look at the market now, the average employee retention is like 2-3 years, 4 years. If you look at my career in 17 years, I haven't stayed at a company for more than 4 years. Whenever the fourth year is approaching in the company, I kind of go back and review myself. My journey is fourth year is a year of reflecting where I am. So it's like that's how my thinking works. And I'm not sure, even in the youngsters, I see my brother, my friends, like 2-3 years is pretty much average, where 16 years is a remarkable.
I have a very strong opinion on that. If I'm joining a company, like you're in Slalom, I'm in Snowflake, if I like the company, the culture I'm working at, why should I change the company? I do the same reflection every 2 years. So I don't even wait till 4 years. I do it every 2 years and I say, what is next for me in this company? What's my next role? Because I need to do continuous learning. And that's another topic that we need to discuss, Neha, is how do I learn? Because if I don't learn, I'll be stagnant. And that's what makes you feel irrelevant. You feel like you're not doing anything new. So that continuous learning and the opportunity to be in another role, that is what I look at. And then if I don't get that, then yes, then you think about looking for another company.
But Saurabh has a good point, and that is very controversial. Some wouldn't pick side on this one. But hey, I do want to say you do need to take more credit than that for the fact that you're with the same company, Sagar, for these many years, which is phenomenal. My quick observation is, in my opinion, if you have had a successful stint of, let's say, anything more than 8 or 9 or 10 years, then the likelihood of you spending anything in tune of 15, 20, 25 years increases. And my observation is that is because A, you've spent that much of time with the same company, which means you must have built that sort of trust, credibility with the stakeholders, relationships that outlive your professional relationships. And hence that trust, in every engagement conversation that you have with them. That also then spins into sense of belonging, which is very important commodity for us as human beings. That then also extends to loyalty. But then once again, to each its own. But the start that you shared, Saurabh, that's right on the money. In today's time, in the world of TA, we say if a resource has spent more than 2 or 3 years in a company, anything more than that is a bonus. So enjoy that.
In a company, when we look at continuous learning, looking at different roles and all those things, there's also one aspect which didn't come to my mind until I read your article, Neha, which is looking at a different career. And you had an article on LinkedIn which talks about, hey, just changing your role is not just a thing. You can also think about a totally different career. So tell us about that.
I am beyond fascinated anytime I speak with any professional that has got anything to do or aspires to do career pivot. That is inspirational in itself, Sagar, because it takes a lot of grit. You're taking leap of faith, risk, sort of reinventing yourself. You have it in you to be constantly checking in with yourself and, learning about your mojo, your calling. We're ever changing beings, we live, transform, grow as a person, as a professional through the experiences that touches our life. And accepting that itself as a first step takes a lot of gumption. And I love that. So whenever I'm talking to candidates and I hear any mention of like, hey, earlier I was doing auditing, bookkeeping, then I moved into data. And, they just wanted to sort of cruise by that point because they would think in their head that I'm more interested in learning about the data journey. And I was like, what did you just say? How did that happen? Why? Tell me more about that. It talks a lot about that person's character building in a lot of ways.
What would be your recommendation for new generation? I'm a 18-year-old kid, and forget about the job. He keeps changing what he's going to do in a uni every 2 months.
Today's generation, they would rather be doing something that they enjoy. They're very much in touch with who they are, what they want to pursue, and they have a more stronger sense of attaching what they do with their purpose and their value system, their ethos, their belief systems. And they're not afraid to talk about it, Sagar. They don't fall for whatever you tell them. They understand that if I'm a TA, I'm representing my company, which means my job is to sell my company to you as much as you're selling right now yourself to me. Lately, one change that I've seen is the self-awareness that comes with it and their understanding of the role and the latitude that they now have in their recruitment process, which I love, by the way, and I'm all for it, has led to the fact that they will interject you and they'll ask questions. For example, there was a day where I could just go about, my company has this great culture. We're people first, focused on DIE, yada, yada. And the candidates would usually nod along or maybe just compliment you back. And I've now seen candidates, interrupting you politely and asking, can you share an example with me? Like, when was the last time your leadership actually did listen to a feedback and implemented a change? If I were to say my company really believes in employees' well-being, candidates would ask me, like, can you share one example with me? Or can you share what was your company's rating in the index or the surveys that you folks do? Or can you share an example with me? How did you go about being, when you say you care for community, care for sustainability, apart from just giving 2 volunteer days per year, which every company is doing. So candidates have become very smart and they really know their ways of bringing in anything that they value as a person and making sure that they ask you, hey, what is your company's stance on this? It could be flexibility, it could be inclusivity, it could be DIE, it could be learning and development. So they're not afraid to ask questions these days, Sagar.
The candidate has evolved and they have become smarter these days. Has the talent industry, in the industry in general, has the process evolved with time? Has it transformed?
We folks have come a long way as an industry in TA. And I personally feel like I get it more so because I've been part of data and analytics as an industry, as a domain for a long time. What really comes handy and how market has shifted is we now use a lot of TA analytics, insights, reports. Like LinkedIn, as an example, has come a long way. They've always have had this LinkedIn Talent Recruiter or Talent Insights as one of their, ancillary product offerings for TAs, if that makes sense. But even that has changed a lot for better in the last couple of years. So whenever we're having those conversations with business where we're representing the talent pool, market, demand and supply, we now back that up with a lot of numbers and data. And the best thing is that you can argue with people, you can't argue with data.
When you recruit a person, how much weightage you give towards soft skills versus technical skills?
To answer this, maybe we'll have to break this down into 2 different market landscapes. So if I were to hire someone, let's say for product company, Sagar, or in TA, as we call it, an in-house role, right? Where essentially if you join a company, sure, you'll be solving different problems every day, but you'll be working with same faces, same stakeholders. Your CXO is not going to change, your CTO is not going to change, your manager is not going to change. And they are your main stakeholders. And also your company's cloud environment wouldn't change, your tools wouldn't change. So when you are joining as a techie, when you're joining a product company or in-house role, as a recruiter, I wouldn't probably pay as much importance to your soft skills or interpersonal skills, but I will have to do more so if I were to hire you in a consulting role, where your job would warrant you to play a role of an advisor. And in a consulting, as we all know, depending on how quickly you are getting staffed to a new project, every project will bring new faces, new stakeholders. One project could be Azure, other could be GCP. And hence, I think it's more brutal in a lot of ways. And hiring for a consulting company, you need to have the ability of storytelling, as I said earlier, right? So having certifications is amazing. Knowing your skills and tools is amazing. But if you lack the ability of translating your technical solution, platforms, products that you build to stakeholders, and if you're not able to sort of interpret your data into storytelling, then you'll not be having a very successful career.
Thank you, Neha, for having a chat with us regarding Talent Hunt. This was really useful and helpful episode. If someone wants to talk to Neha, please, reach her on her LinkedIn.
Thank you, Neha.
Thank you both. This was amazing. Thank you so much.
With that, we wrap our season 1 today. Thank you all the audience who have showed love and have encouraged us to create new episodes. We'll be coming up with season 2 next year. Please stay tuned to what we are in for season 2. It's going to be bigger and better than what we have done for season 1. And those who are watching or listening, please be safe and take care. Thank you.